The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Father Joseph Sund. Hey, Father.
Good to be with you.
And Victor Lambs. Hey, Victor.
Hi, Dom.
Folks, I want you to check out another show that's on the StarQuest Network that you're sure to enjoy called The Catholics of Oz, which you can find wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/Oz. And no, it's not a show about the Wizard of Oz. It is actually a show about Australia. So definitely check that out. Before we get into our main topic, we did have some feedback. We got on our last episode where we had farmer Matthew Clark on to discuss the future of farming. We got a YouTube comment from Dr. Mandible, who wrote, Farnsworth, a farmer, invented the television. I hope farmers have the time and inclination to be inventors again. Open source, decentralized ag tech needs to happen because relying on John Deere will be the noose that strangles them. Interesting. Yeah, that's right. What was Farnsworth? Farnsworth has like initials, doesn't he? Like PT
or JP or something.
Yeah, something JT. Like that. Yeah, I didn't look it up before, but yes, one of the inventors, it's one of those
PT.
things. PT, okay, like PT Barnum. It was one of those things where a bunch of people were working on it at the same time, but he was, I think, the first to it. And yeah, I mean, farmers, if you listen to either of our episodes with Matt, farmers are constantly having to tinker and fix and make and do and be creative, and that's precisely the sort of thing that inventors do. So, yeah, that's actually interesting to think about farmers, in the digital age as inventors of that sort. I'd be curious to see how that goes. In fact, one of the stories we talked about was the guys with the field robots, the drones, the rolling drones that shoot the weeds with lasers. That guy was a farmer. So,
okay.
Yeah. Very interesting. Excellent. Well, thank you, Dr. Mandible, for your feedback. We really appreciate it. So our main topic this time, this is something that kind of came up in our Discord community, where we were asked by one of our listeners about advice for getting started with home automation. We've talked a lot about home automation before. In fact, a previous episode where was similarly on this topic of getting started with home automation was way back in 2020 in episode 72. And a lot has changed since then. Some things haven't changed, but a lot has changed. So it's worth revisiting. And, the question that he came up with is, he said, I want to start automating things in my house, but my wife is resistant, which is a very familiar refrain. So I want to do it in such a way that she won't be annoyed, but will in fact accept it. And so that was, an interesting challenge. And so, the question is where do you begin? And so Victor, Father, I assume both of you have at least some home automations in your homes, right? Because good geeks that you are.
Some, a little too much sometimes. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I started about 10 years ago when we moved into the house we're living in now, and I wanted to get a smart things hub and start to have smart sensors everywhere on all the doors and smart lights. And over the first few years we lived in this house, I did put in probably about 50 or 60 smart devices in terms of sensors, switches, outlets, including things that I made myself using, simple microcontrollers and stuff. And it's worked really well. I've found a combination of things that work really well. And then it worked so well, I kind of ignored where the industry was going and And now I find out that there's a whole new standard for home automation devices, and my Z-Wave network may be obsolete, but it does work, and it's worked for many years. So I'm happy with it. And yeah, definitely the whole, how do you make your automated home, spouse friendly is a discussion, knowing that there will always be, hiccups, as shall we say, as you go.
Yes, with any tech thing, long-suffering spouses of tech enthusiasts should be a club. So the big question then is, where do you begin? And as I was thinking about this, I think the first question is, which ecosystem? Because there were basically three big ecosystems now. There were more, as you mentioned, Victor. There was SmartThings was one, but basically, and you still can find other smaller ones. But if you want the three big ones, it's HomeKit, Amazon, and Google. Those are your big three questions that works with. When you look for a product, it works with that. And a lot of products will work with all three. They'll say that, hey, it works with Amazon, HomeKit, and Google. But sometimes you have to make sure you get the particular product that they have one that works with this and another one that works with that, and you have to kind of pay attention to that. Although, as you mentioned, there's a new interoperable standard called Matter, and Matter it's sort of a big topic, and maybe I don't want to get into. It's more of a little more advanced topic. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of Matter, but suffice it to say that Matter is a new standard that a lot of these manufacturers have got together on, where it makes it easier for one device to work across many, but also makes setting up the devices easier, so that you can set them up in any of the Google app, Amazon HomeKit app, or in the manufacturer's app, and it just works. And it's supposed to be a lot easier. It's still new. There's still a few bumps on the road, but I don't have any Matter-enabled devices yet. I've kind of slowed down on my acquisition of smart home things myself, although I'm starting to get the itch to start doing some more things. It's very dangerous. But so what do you guys have? What standards have you worked with? Which are you in one of the big three ecosystems now, Victor?
I'm still I use a combination of SmartThings for my Z-Wave, which is the older wireless standard devices. I also use a custom, it's actually pretty easy to get into now, called Home Assistant, where you run your own server, so you're not trading information. But the really cool thing is, with both SmartThings and Home Assistant, is that they work and they integrate seamlessly with Amazon, Google. I'm not sure about HomeKit. So excellent. Yeah. So from my voice assistant, I'm not saying the name right now, it'll, I can control devices that are paired with my Home Assistant hub or my SmartThings hub. And another kind of company that I like is TP-Link. They make routers and stuff. They have a home automation wing or brand called Kasa, Kasa. And what I like about their stuff is it's Wi-Fi based, so it connects to your router, but it's also they're very inexpensive as well. So it's around $5 for a pretty solid smart plug, that has pretty robust electronics inside, and I feel comfortable, plugging those things into my walls and stuff. So and those work out of the box with Amazon, certainly, at least. So if I were getting started and I wanted, and I have done this for my mom in her house, just get started with a 4-pack of the Kasa smart plugs and plug some lamps into them, and then see how you use them.
Yeah. I want to get a little more into that in a sec too, but I just want to close the loop on the hub or ecosystem thing, because I just want to say, like, if you are a Mac person and you own HomePods, you're already, or an Apple TV, you've got a home hub right there. If you've got Echo devices, that's a natural begin. If you've already, if you've got a Google Home, those sorts of things. I want to tell you a little anecdote, by the way, about something that happened with my HomePod last night. I was watching videos. I have I have a weird affinity for car crash compilation videos. I don't know why. Dash cam videos of people crashing their cars at intersections. It's a thing. I don't know. Everyone has their own little weird niche of videos they watch. Anyway, I was watching one, and I had the sound on, and this woman gets crashed into, and as soon as it stops, she says, "I'm not going to say it now." She says out loud, "Hey, S lady, call 911." And I'm like, "Oh shoot!" And suddenly my HomePods, "Do you want me to call 911 for you?" I'm like, "No, please stop. Don't." Like, oh my gosh. I was like, that's all I need is for the cops to show up at my house at 11 o'clock at night. Like, and trying to explain to them that I was watching a video call in my HomePod called. So anyway, that's just a little anecdote about HomePods.
I wonder how many 911 operators have this come up of 911 calls being made by Siri or being made by the A lady or those assistants who are making them accidentally. I'm sure it's not negligible.
Yeah. I mean, and there's always been butt dials and accidental dials, but yeah, I can imagine that there's more coming from the smart devices that are sometimes not so smart.
Yeah,
I think just a PSA here. If you do accidentally call 911, please stay on the phone.
Yes, don't just hang up.
Yes.
Because they will come. Yeah. They will come.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess my perspective is it's less important what ecosystem you have up front.
Yeah.
If you do just get some devices, they'll connect that are Wi-Fi, they'll connect to your router. Everything connects to Amazon or Google or HomeKit these days. So whatever you're comfortable using, you can keep using it.
And that's a really good point. So the next point I wanted to make was starting small, like start with simple.
Yeah.
And you can start with outlets, the things that just plug into an outlet and you plug something into them. You can also start with bulbs. I started early on with Philips Hue bulbs. They're the big name. They're the big gorilla. They're also the most expensive. But they have been most of the time, until very recently, they required a hub. So like an extra little box that connects to your network. And then so they have to connect to the hub, and then they connect that to the network and the internet. And that there's good and bad. If they're all Wi-Fi enabled, then it means that they're all set. Each light bulb is a separate device on your network. And in the past, that could be a problem, but with modern Wi-Fi routers, it's not as much of a problem. But whatever you do, if you don't get a hub system, make sure they're not Bluetooth. Make sure they are Wi-Fi. Bluetooth enabled bulbs, especially. As you can hear, their experience. They fall off the connection. They don't respond immediately. There's nothing worse than your spouse walking into the room and hitting the button to turn on the light and having to wait 10, 15 seconds. Even 5 seconds is too long compared to flipping a switch. So you want something that's responsive, and Wi-Fi is a lot better.
Yes.
So Victor, you mentioned the TP-Link Casa outlets. I like the Miros outlets, and what they are, they're just little rectangular shaped, and the way that they get them shaped is you can put two in an outlet and they stack on each other, and then you plug stuff into those. So if you have like a lamp that you want to start with a lamp, and and then you could get a remote control switch, and you don't have to necessarily get the switch of the same brand. You just need to make sure that they're compatible. And then you get and then you put the switch somewhere where it's easily accessible. So grow a little at a time. One of the things I would suggest is don't switch everything all at once. Start with one room and just a couple lamps in that room, a couple of ceiling lights, if you have ceiling can lights or something along those lines. Start small, grow gradually. It's more cost effective that way too.
They're great for like Christmas trees and other seasonal decor as well.
Yes.
That's a good way to get started. Just have a smart plug that you use for your Christmas tree, and every year you bring it out and plug it in, and
yes,
you can turn it on and off with your voice.
Yeah. Another thing of advice is go with reputable names. Some of the ones we're suggesting, other things. If you go online and you go onto your Temu app or your AliExpress and you just buy the random cheap plugs, your support for them probably won't exist after a while. And then also, we're talking about plugging 120 volt vanes into something
15 amps. Yeah.
15 amps. Yeah. You do want to be careful about that. And you also want to be careful about what the draw is of what you plug into those things.
At best, you get no support. At worst, they spy on you or they set your house on fire. So yeah, don't buy name brand, buy things that have a lot of positive reviews, independent reviews, not just Amazon reviews.
Yeah.
It's not worth saving $5-6 to buy the cheap ones.
And most of the Wi-Fi enabled devices, the things that don't require hubs at this point, will ask you to install a dedicated app. And, TP-Link, I use their routers, or I have in the past, so I don't have a problem with their app. I know it's, whatever spying it's doing, it's probably, benign. But when they say, okay, now to use this light bulb, go into the Google App Store, type in wonderful light app, and click on the fourth result, you're like, okay, this seems a little sketchy here.
Yeah. If it asks you to download your address book, that's probably not the app for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
You must enable unknown sources for install before installing this app.
So 2 other name brands I want to throw out for outlets that are pretty good are SwitchBot and Eve. I know those both work with HomeKit. I'm not certain about their support for other ecosystems, but they're also starting to come out with Matter-enabled devices, so it shouldn't matter soon. Matter, get it? But the SwitchBot and Eve, the one thing I like about those, I have a SwitchBot outlet that monitors energy usage, and I use that on some devices where I want to know when something is running. It's plugged in, but it's not running like a washer or a fan. So when it's running and drawing more power over a certain threshold, then I want other things to turn off or on or alert me or that sort of thing. So that's one great way to use an outlet like that. Yeah.
Well, one other outlet, Amazon has their smart plugs that are just their ones. And so if you want it to be easy and you're in that ecosystem where you just power up the smart plug and your device blinks at you and tells you that it found something, those ones, I think they've run about $20 a plug. So they're a little higher on the scale when it comes to the plugs, but but also if you wait to a Prime Day sale or a Black Friday or something, usually you can pick them up for $5-6.
Yeah. And the Miras ones are pretty inexpensive. That's one of those reasons I like those, is they're fairly inexpensive. So we've talked a bit about, making it nice for your non-techie family. And one of the things I would say is make sure that there are always non-app, non-smart assistant ways to control the devices. You don't want to have your spouse have to open her phone or talk to the Echo or the HomePod every time they want to turn a light on or off. You need to have a switch, and that isn't just turning off the analog switch on the wall and thus ruining all your automations and all that smart homey stuff. So you need to, usually I would suggest getting a physical remote or switch that you can mount on the wall near the switch outlet, or put on a end table or that sort of thing. So you place controls for lights near their wall counterparts where people expect them. Or what's great is you could put them where you wish there were an outlet. I mean, a wall switch. And I've been in houses where the switch for the light is on the other side of the room from the door that you enter. Usually old houses, where that used to be pre-electric. So you could put a switch near the door in that case. So that sort of thing. There is a more expensive route that, you don't have to switch light bulbs and all this sort of stuff. You can replace the wall switches with smart in-wall switches. So you're replacing the switch itself with something like the Lutron Cassetta. Now, this is a much more expensive route. Those go for around $50 each. So imagine how much it would cost to do your entire house. Most people do that will, like I said, do a room at a time, and over time eventually replace.
Yeah.
The benefit there is light bulbs burn out, even the expensive or inexpensive smart bulbs, whereas the wall switch will last and last and last. So it's something to consider.
Yeah, that's what I have set up in my rectory. I didn't set it up. My pastor was the one who bought into that system. I probably would have been too cheap to buy into that system myself. I have that paired together with, as Victor was talking about, Home Assistant. So the Lutron stuff doesn't have quite the automation things that I would like. And so I kind of have things tied together and hodgepodge together with that. So a little more complicated there, but
I have a mixture of Z-Wave, which I said is the older technology, but then the Casa makes their Wi-Fi wall switches, and you can sometimes get those as cheap as $10 for a switch. Mm-hmm. So I have a number of those, and where those are really good are for kind of overhead, light fixtures with multiple bulbs in them. So we have like a kitchen light fixture that has like 6 or 8 bulbs in it. So just having that in the wall switch, so you can turn that on, and more importantly, turn it off when you're not in the room. But also outdoor lights like porch lights, garage, external garage lights, external back porch lights. Having those on on the switch that's actually inside the house, closer to the Wi-Fi hub, is a lot more reliable than trying to make a connection to the bulb, which is outside and far away. Every time. And if you do, if you are smart about how you source them, you can get them for $10 a switch,
right?
Usually. And
someone may say, like, well, if I'm just going to use the wall switch, why bother smartening it up? Because of the automation capabilities, the idea that you can lay down in bed and at night and go, I left the light on in the laundry room, and now I have to go all the way down the stairs. Or you just say, hey, A lady, or hey, S lady, turn off the laundry room, or nighttime, or I have a scene or routine for my office where I say office empty, and it turns off certain equipment, different things, and sets it for the night.
But the real appeal of home automation comes in the automation part. So if you find yourself in situations asking your home assistant to turn on and off lights, ask yourself, can I automate this routine? I'm asking them to turn off the kitchen lights because I'm not in there. Well, can I get a motion sensor? And if I'm not in the kitchen for 20 minutes, the lights will go off. Or, if I'm not anywhere downstairs, the lights will turn off. And, or if it's after 10 o'clock and there's no motion. So you can create these really elaborate if-then statements to automate the lights. And I think that's the real appeal of home automation is not to be able to turn on a light with your voice, but to have the home intelligently know when you're going to want lights or when you don't want lights, and to do that. And you can save energy. I mean, I don't know if you'll save enough energy to offset the cost of all these devices and your time, but you really can save energy in it. And for someone like me who spends or spent a large chunk of my day just running through the house turning off lights, it's nice to not have to. And I have in addition, I have vent fans that are just USB powered PC fans that I have plugged into smart plugs, and I have that connected via automation to my furnace. So when my furnace kicks on, the home automation center's we're in heat mode, the vent fans will turn on and help blow the air into the house. Or if the air conditioner turns on, and they'll turn off 15 minutes after my furnace turns off and the hot air is no longer in the ducts, they'll turn off. So there's a lot that once you start getting into it and start thinking of what are my daily annoyances, what can I automate? That's really the power of home automation there.
Yeah. One of the things that I do with the Lutron switches that we have is we have them on our external driveway lights and our deck lights and all of that. And so it's automated with the dusk time based on the internet on the current dusk time. And so I don't have to keep switching for daylight savings time and for the changing of the sun and everything. That I have it set that 40 minutes before dusk, our lights come on, right? And so no matter what time dusk is, I set that up 2 years ago, and it's still the way it should be.
Yep. I have automations like at a certain time of the night, It automatically makes sure that I have a home automation door lock. I make sure the doors are locked, and it turns off certain lights and that sort of thing. And one of the tips, this the listener who was asking about this was saying, that he got started and he's like, in the home kit, in the home app, with the automation, I can turn a light on, but it only will let me keep it on for up to 4 hours as a timer in the app, and I can't keep it on for longer, to tell it to turn off over a longer period. And I'm like, oh yeah, I never used that timer. I just set up a second automation to turn it off.
Yeah.
So there's ways to get around these sorts of things. One sort of analog thing I want to suggest is, if you aren't taking the wall switches out and you're just using a different type of remote switch, like a wireless light switch or of that sort, get the switch covers that go over the physical switches. Now, the way that they work is you have to consciously go in and kind of maneuver your finger in there and to lower to turn, so you can still turn it on and off physically, but it'll save yourself a lot of aggravation and help your family learn not to hit the switch. It's an automatic behavior that will have to be unlearned for a while, but you go and you flip a switch into a room. So this will help keep it, because what happens is if they flip the switch, then none of the automations are going to work. There's no power getting to the bulb or whatever it is to power it. So it's off the network. So
yeah, I should add one thing here. If you are replacing switches, obviously make sure that you're competent and feel confident in your electrical ability to do so. But you also need a white neutral wire, in your house. And if you have especially an older house, you might not have the right kind of wiring to support this. So that's always good to ask an electrician or a buddy who thinks they're an electrician to check that out for you.
Just to open up some of the possibilities with automations, I'll just give an example of what I have set up for my dad at home. So my dad my parents have that struggle that one of as retired couple, one of them wakes up a lot earlier than the other. That's a real life struggle for people. And he has a command to the Echo device that tells her, I'm up early. And when he tells the Amazon Echo, I'm up early, it goes through the whole routine of where the lights should be set, turning on the TV, setting it to the channel he usually turns it on, and most importantly, putting the TV at the correct volume that it should be at. And so it goes through all of those things. Importantly, that it turns on the correct lights to lower fall risk and all of those things. And so just a really helpful thing that all of that's done inside the Amazon Echo app. I didn't use the right name of the app because I don't want to set mine off, but inside that app, it all can be done inside of there and just works really beautifully. So the other thing we forgot to mention is you can get TVs. I'm not too hot about having my TV hooked up to the internet, but if you want the benefit, you can get it. You can get your Fire TVs, your Roku TVs, those that can tie in well with those home automations as well. Yeah,
I have a nighttime automation that sets all of my home pods to like 0 volume, and then a morning automation that returns them to the normal volume, just in case something, because it happens every once in a while. They start playing a song, and like for no reason, something triggered it, and woke me up one night, and my wife was not happy. So I have this automation now that sets them to 0 when they go to bed, because there's no need for them to be allowed. So that's been handy. So I want to talk about where you could grow from there. You could add, as Victor mentioned, sensors, motion detectors, either indoors or outdoors. I have a couple motion detectors. I have, in some, like in our laundry room, I have one because that's what I mentioned. It's always the place where the light comes on, someone turns a light on and then walks out and doesn't turn it off. It's like, I'm tempted to put one in the bathroom because that's another issue. But water leak sensors, I'm big on water leak sensors ever since I had that massive house leak a few years ago. I now have water leak sensors all around my house. You can even you build your own, like your own sort of makeshift home alarm system with door and window contact sensors that are smart home enabled, and they connect to the whole system. I've got a bunch through Akara, which is another company that's making a lot of these inexpensive ones. You can get smart doorbells. I think everyone knows about the Ring doorbells, and the Google's got one, and there's a bunch of those out there. And cameras. I'm not big on indoor cameras. I actually have a couple that I only set up when I'm going to be away. I don't like having them connected. Internet connected cameras on when we're home and walking around. But I do set them up when we're going to be away so I can keep an eye on the house. But I do have outdoor cameras that are on all the time. Yeah. But that's some areas where you could grow.
The camera recommendation I have that I've been using a lot of them with. TP-Link has I think it's pronounced Tapo or Topo series. They're about $19 a camera. My great thing about these is that they are, I'm going to get really nerdy here, they're OMVIF compatible, which means that I can tie them into my current security systems that are a little more high-techy for some portable cameras that make it inexpensive, and we don't have to pay $1,000 to install another camera. But these ones, you can put an SD card in them. So like the office building I'm in right now, we have one that's out a window into the parking lot that's just able to give us that motion recording and let us know that someone's in the parking lot. And it's that simple. And a $19 plus the SD card investment, which is cheap.
I should also mention that if you have a home security system through something, like one of the big names in home security, they may already have a smart home hub built into whatever sort of panel they give you, because, if it comes with sensors and cameras, you do have the option of adding additional sensors and light switches. So that's something to investigate as well. They're usually way more expensive than sourcing them yourself, but for, smoke detectors, that sort of thing, because it can be very difficult to find if you don't want to spend $150 or $300 on a smoke detector that's only going to last, 10 years, to find, smart home enabled smoke detectors and stuff that tie into your system and can wake you up, turn on the lights to show you the exit, or you when you're not home that you have smoke and stuff. So that sort of thing.
My on my parents' system that I have everything automated on, their system has alarm.com as the hub, which a lot of alarm systems have that through that, and there's a lot of good integration in with those of things you can tie those to, not just arming and disarming the system with your voice, but doing a few other things.
So to sort of wrap up our conversation this time, I do want to recommend that there's lots of great YouTube channels of people showing you how to get started, and so you get the visuals of that. One I want to recommend is Shane Watley. I'll put a link in the show notes. He focuses mainly on HomeKit enabled smart home stuff. So if you are interested in the Apple ecosystem, especially, he's been recently doing a whole bunch with CarPlay, which I don't have a CarPlay enabled car, and I really want one, but he actually, reviews a lot of the different products and has a lot of practical advice. He did a makeover for a nursery recently for a friend, smart enabling a nursery, and recently did one for his grandfather, smart enabled his home. So he very practical sort of stuff from his channel. So I'd recommend that one. Yeah, so that's it for our getting started with home automation. I mean, you can tell by how we talk about it, like we kept kind of edging beyond the beginner level to the intermediate level, because it's easy to kind of get started and then to start to think of ways that you can improve it. And the universe of home automation is large, and there's a lot you could do. So I'm sure if you have questions, you have other so you want some suggestions in specific areas, feel free to let us know. Contact us, technology@sqpn.com, or leave a comment on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you find us, and we'll or join our Discord and join the conversation there. We'll be sure to try to do our best to answer whatever questions we can. All right. Before we move on, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Carrie B., James I., Adam S., Mike M., and Kelly P. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of technology and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So let's talk about some headlines. Our first headline is interesting. From thegamer.com. Tetris has finally been beaten after 34 years. So what does it mean to beat Tetris? There's the original Nintendo Tetris system. It doesn't actually stop feeding you. There's no like you've won the game sort of screen. It's basically when you get to a high enough level where the things are coming so fast that the game eventually crashes. So they call it a kill screen. And so this kid, what's his name? Blue Shooty, whatever his real name is, who is, I think he's like 13 or 14.
13, yeah.
Yeah. So he's got the reflexes of a 13-year-old, has finally
plus
it.
All the kids are on Adderall these days. Makes it very easy to beat video games.
That's right. And I mean, the thing with the Tetris is that with each successive level, the blocks fall faster. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows what Tetris is. In the past, it was believed that the highest level was level 29, which is where that's the fastest level. They're falling as fast as they can there. But he got it up to level 146, I think it was, which is where it ended up crashing. And there's like, they talked about some of the techniques of like, vibrating your thumbs and that sort of thing. So what do you guys think? Have you considered playing Tetris at that level? Have you ever reached a level where it would fall that fast?
I'm not good at Tetris. My kids are. They're all excellent at Tetris, and I think it does have something to do with being a kid and their reflexes and stuff. But yeah, that's a young person's game. I got out of that when it was clear that I wasn't gonna be a world champion.
The past month or so has been a humbling experience for me of playing old Atari games on the little Atari system that I got around Christmas time. And those older games are a lot harder than the current games because they weren't so focused on graphics and all of that.
And story.
And story.
Yeah.
They were just focused on making a good game. And so, I did not remember that Space Invaders was as difficult as it is sometimes, and that that it's easy to get killed. It's a little humbling to try to do those games after years of playing of getting these cakewalk games.
It's funny to play some of the old arcade games on like a console or a PC now, because I feel like the controls of the old cabinet games was more conducive to play those particular games. Like I think a Centipede and that ball, and the ball had weight and momentum, and it was huge. It was like a candlepin bowling ball, it was like or a bocce ball, it was had some heft to it. And the buttons, you could mash those buttons all day and those things would last forever. They had to, because you had 13-year-old kids smashing the heck out of them 8 hours a day. And I just don't feel like you can do that with any of the controllers or stuff Like I just like if I ever play Centipede, used to love Centipede in the in the arcade, and if I ever play Centipede on a console or on the PC, it just isn't the same. I can't do it.
Tom, I think you're just blaming the controller for the old age that brings the lack of skills go down.
I think if you bring a cabinet arcade game here, I'll show you some things about Centipede. That's for sure. I say that with full confidence, knowing that's never going to happen, so I can boast as much as I can.
Yeah, my home arcade cabinet, which is running a Raspberry Pi, it actually does have a trackball, a pretty decent sized one, and so that is fun to play. But there are some games you just can't play anymore. There was a Bally Midway game called Zwackery where you played a wizard, and it had a rotary controller to control, his arm for casting spells. It had a joystick that had a thumb button and a control button on it, and the rotary controller, it was an encoder. You could push it down, and it was just a really crazy control scheme that you just cannot emulate.
Yeah, it is sad to think we've lost so many of these classics that just can't be replicated, can't be played. I'm glad we've got the ones we do have, but there's it's fun. I hope we can keep some of these things alive in various ways going forward. So our next headline is a little bit different. This is from Fortune magazine. It says Starbucks is accused of rigging payments in their app for nearly $900 million gain over 5 years, according to a consumer watchdog group. And so the crux of this is Starbucks has their app. People pay through the app. I do the same thing with Dunkin' Donuts, and you have to reload the amounts on the app as opposed to just paying directly through your payment system. There's a reason they do it this way. Let's put it this way. And so you reload it in $5 increments, and this consumer watchdog group basically says the way it's set up is people always have to carry at least a small balance and can never use up all that money. And when you add it all up over the entire Starbucks app ecosystem, it amounts to basically essentially a float of $900 million. That $900 million over 5 years that Starbucks is holding on to, that they can put in their bank and gain interest on, which is $900 million is not as substantial. What do you think?
This is that Office Space thing all over again. Yeah. It's the where I have the fraction of the penny go into a account set aside. I mean, that's basically what they've done, except they've done it in a legal way.
Well, I mean, who watches the watchdogs here? I don't know if they're setting up for a class action lawsuit or what that will benefit them. But yeah, I mean, come on, people. I mean, you know how gift cards work, right? If you want to use up the balance, you make the purchase. If it's over, you pay the rest out of, cash or your debit card or whatever. I mean, it's not, I mean, the very first comment on the version of the story here is like, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out. I mean, people are doing this because I guess they like the convenience, and with that convenience, comes a little, personal responsibility, I guess.
Well, with great power comes great responsibility.
But that money is still your money. It's just in a currency that you can't spend otherwise. You have to spend it at Starbucks. But if you're a Starbucks customer, you're just gonna keep spending it there. But you're also right, Victor. That's an important point. You can spend that balance by going in and buy. Say you have a $2 left on it, and you want to use it up. Go buy a $4 coffee, which is fairly easy at Starbucks, and use your $2 and pay $2 in cash. Now you're all cleared up. I mean, it's a tempest in a teapot, to coin a phrase, from my perspective.
You're saying this in a world right now that I actually have students ask the lunch lady if they can Venmo for milk. So just to be clear, the society we live in.
Not cash, pay with a debit card, pay with a credit card, pay with your Apple Pay, but you can pay other than with the app, use up that balance and then pay the remainder with another form of currency.
I mean, and let's be clear here. When you prepay on something like this, you're giving an interest-free loan to Starbucks. You're loaning them money that you may collect in the form of coffee someday. You may not, but they're not paying interest on the money you've loaned them. So don't give Starbucks interest-free loans.
Right. Just instead of loading money on your coffee, Fix app. Just pay with your Apple Pay or Google Pay or your debit card or credit card or whatever it is instead, because like Victor says, you're giving them a loan of your money, and it is big business. As we see, it all adds up, and that's why they're always pushing gift cards. Do you know how many gift cards never get cash? It's a whole nother. I think we actually talked about that once. There's a huge number of gift cards that never, the dollar amount of gift cards. They have to, in some states, gift cards don't ever expire, but if they never get spent, they still have that money in the bank earning interest. So
yeah.
If you do want to give money away electronically, you should visit sqpn.com/give.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, that is exactly how you should. We will gladly take your money, and it won't be a loan. It will go to a good cause to support our nonprofit mission. Very good. That seems like a good time to switch to our third headline. Do you remember back about over a month ago where that Alaska Airlines flight had the part of the door plug pop off and nobody got sucked out, just some phones, thank God. But so someone actually found someone's iPhone that had fallen out and found it on the side of the road, and it was still running. It was still and the crazy thing is it was unlocked laying there. So
yeah, how'd that happen?
Either the owner didn't have a passcode on it, maybe, I don't know, but could you imagine like being the guy on the plane, your phone gets sucked out and you're like, well, now my phone's gone, and then getting a call or an email or something from someone, hey, found your phone. I can't imagine how weird that would be.
I'm wondering if this is a good Apple commercial or not, because it landed unlocked. Maybe they just squirvy over that little detail.
It's
but
not,
the fact that it survived the 16,000 foot drop.
That's not as hard to believe, but yeah.
It's not very impressive.
Prime. This is prime advertising stuff.
I mean, it's kind of like chucking a piece of cardboard out of an airplane. I mean, it's a little bit heavier, but given how, the surface area of phones are so big nowadays, I mean, the terminal velocity, it's going to reach it pretty quick. I'm not a physicist. I don't know how, momentum and gravity and air resistance all work, but and if it lands on wet ground, it's going to be a pretty soft landing. They found it under a bush, I think, too. So maybe it fell down. It
landed in a really brushy area from the pictures.
If you look at the pictures, yeah, it probably landed in the bushes. If it landed, like, say, 10 feet to the right, say, from the point of view of the camera, onto that street, yeah, it would have shattered into a million pieces. I mean, that's just, it wouldn't have survived that. I just think it's amazing they found it. Like it just happened to, to be found. It was just kind of wild. I did see a video online around the same time of someone who was in a small plane. I think they were skydiving maybe, but they dropped their phone and you see the phone falling and starts spinning. And it gets to that point of spinning where it kind of stabilizes. It's going so fast. And then it stops with the camera up, and then you see a pig come over and bite it, starts trying to eat it, because pigs will eat anything. Apparently the phone survived. They got the phone back because we have that video as proof of it, unless the pig saved the video while it was in process.
The article says on this plane one that it looks like they were able to use the Apple Find My iPhone thing, and they found it.
That is wild. If my phone got sucked out of a plane, I'd try it.
Definitely.
So, but thank God no one was hurt. That's the most important thing. All right. So those are our headlines. Let's move on to our picks of the week. Victor, you're up next.
Yeah. So our one of our youngest son had a birthday recently, and he is really into Ghostbusters. I know we talked about Ghostbusters Afterlife in one of the upcoming Secrets of Movies and TV, but we're always on the lookout for cool Ghostbusters toys. I had the toys myself when I was a kid until I gave them all away to charity at some point, which is a decision I regret often, but they're reissuing a lot of them. But what's really interesting is having made prop toys and added electronics to them, for kids' Halloween costumes for Ghostbusters and spent many hours doing that. Hasbro's actually come out with a new version of the Proton Blaster, or Neutrona Wand, if you want to be technically correct there, in anticipation of the new movie. And it's $30. They've actually painted it black, so it looks more like a movie prop. Previous versions were blue. But the electronics inside this thing are truly impressive. No screens. It's all LEDs and sound effects. But the way kids can interact with it by extending parts of it, there's motion controls inside. There's different ghosts that you can trap by pushing and the different buttons.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, and so for and it uses sound effects from the movies and from the 2009 Ghostbusters video game. And like I said, it's really interactive. There's different ghosts that you can attempt to hunt down and trap. And so for $30, if you want to channel your inner Ghostbuster without spending a fortune on a more accurate prop, it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. I like it. Having just you and I talked with Rob Leonardi about Ghostbusters Afterlife, it made me a little nostalgic. So maybe one of my kids will get one of these for a birthday, so I can steal it. So excellent pick. Moving on, Father Joseph, what's your pick this week?
My pick, with iOS 17, I believe they added this feature to the Health app, and I think in the realm of mental health awareness and things, it's an excellent thing that Apple's done. I don't know if there's something similar on the Android ecosphere, but it's the mental health assessment, which is inside the iPhone Health app. The quickest way that I found to get to it is just to search for mental health inside. Just go to the browse and search for mental health inside the iPhone Health app. We'll put in the show notes the link to the whole full details of how to do that. But what it does is that it uses kind of has you go through a survey. And it's using the PHQ-9, which is the Patient Health Questionnaire 9 for the mental health things, and the GAD-7, which is the Generalized Anxiety Disorder 7 questionnaire. Both of those are clinical questionnaire things. And it's using it to measure levels of mental health. And so it gives people a rating of their risk level. Low risk, medium, high risk. And then it also provides them with the information and the numbers that they need and different opportunities to be able to address those mental health. And so it does both a anxiety and depression score. And I think it's something in a really positive step in the realm of mental health.
Yes. Don't self-diagnose, folks. Use this as a means of starting a conversation with your doctor.
Yep. And the app goes through that exactly and tells you that and gives you those warning signs of when you need to contact a doctor and a lot of that self-awareness things. I've pointed this out to high schoolers. If there's a tool on an app to do something, it's a lot easier in mind for them to do it. And so I think this is a really positive.
Some people don't want to talk to someone else, like another person, if they feel there's a stigma still around mental health. So this could be a way for someone to at least take that first step. And I applaud that. Take care of your health, folks, mental and physical. Thank you, Father. That's a good reminder. So my pick this week is a website called, it's an app on a website. The website's portfoliopals.net, and the app on the site is called SumaScript. So one of the things these AI large language models are really good at is summarizing things. They are good. You give them a bunch of information, and they'll summarize it in a cogent manner, and it's really good for that. The problem is that ChatGPT in particular has a limit to the size of the amount of text you can give it, and there's some technical, like 40,000 segments, which is not exactly words and whatever, but so there is a limit, and if you know how to do some prompt engineering, you could probably chain parts of a document together to make it actually fit and do it. But this takes care of that for you. So what you do with SummaScript is you can either get a text file or a PDF, or just copy and paste up to 200,000 characters, and then you click convert, and it will create a summary, either a small, medium, or large summary. It even has a comedy mode, which is kind of funny. It thinks it's a comedian sometimes. And it will summarize. It's not perfect. So how do I use this? I use this for podcasts. So when I'm editing a podcast, I need to create a description, and I need to create like social media posts. And sometimes I do so many of these, and sometimes like I need something that feels a little punchier, I get a rut, I want something. And so what I do with these is I paste it in, I get the summary, and I look at the summary and I say, and sometimes I'll even take it. It usually gives me a summary of like 4 or 5, like get the large one. It's like 4 or 5 paragraphs, 6 paragraphs. I'll take that, put that in ChatGPT because that'll fit, and tell ChatGPT to summarize that. And I get a nice little paragraph. And then I'll take that and I'll write the actual description and, social media posts from that. It's okay. It needs a lot. It's not perfect. You can't just take it and post it somewhere. It's not going to look right. It's not going to be right. But sometimes it's actually pretty funny how it summarizes some things. I probably have some stories for you, Victor, of some of your podcasts.
Yeah, I'm putting a Stargate episode transcripts in it now. I'm turning on comedy mode. And the next episode of Stargate, Secrets of Stargate, is a very somber episode, and the way it's summarizing it in comedy mode is quite.
Is it Chimera
or Heroes? Yeah.
Oh, Heroes. Yes. Yeah. That's pretty funny. But if you have like large documents, even like book PDFs, magazine articles that you want to get just a summary of, this is a nice way to do it. It at least gives you some place to start. And it's free for most uses. I mean, hey, I use this every day. The daily cap is 200,000 characters. That's the free version.
That's about 60 pages.
Right.
In length.
Yep. If you pay $9 a month, there's no daily limit, but there's a monthly cap of 10 million characters.
Oh, wow.
And that's for $9. So, it's like I can imagine in academic area pursuits, in even just like in corporate, like legal or corporate things, just if you need to quickly summarize a bunch of texts, that's a bunch of data, this would be really useful for that sort of thing. So SummaScript, and I'll have a link in the show notes for it. I've found it to be indispensable for my work. All right, so that's it for us this time. We would love to get your feedback on anything we discussed this time, which you can send by visiting the show at sqpn.com/technology, or by going to the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or on X, where we're at SQPN, or on Instagram, where we're at StarQuest Network. You can send an email to technology@sqpn.com. Visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. And you can find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC243. Be sure to follow The Secrets of Tech in Apple Podcasts or Spotify, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app, or our YouTube channel, youtube.com/StarQuestMedia, where you should hit the bell to get notifications. And until next time, Victor Lambs, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Tom.
Father Joseph Sun, thank you as well.
Until next time.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.